Night had swallowed the sky above the lonely valley, and the ruined mansion stood in the center of that darkness like a dying heart. The air carried the smell of wet soil, and unknown rot. The walls of the mansion were still tall, but the windows were broken, and the doors hung twisted as if something inside had pushed them from within long ago. People from nearby villages avoided walking near this land. They said the house was not empty. They said voices floated from its rooms at night, calling names, whispering secrets, begging for blood. They said anyone who stepped inside never returned. With a clear mind or a beating heart, the road leading to the praying mansion stretched through fields of dead grass and stones that shifted under footsteps, and tonight a young man named Farid stood before the gate, holding a lantern. The flame flickered violently, like it was afraid. Farid's boots were dusty from the long journey, his breath heavy with dread, yet he forced himself to look at the mansion because he had come searching for the truth. His sister Sana had vanished 6 months ago. She was last seen walking toward this very house with a diary clutched to her chest. She had believed there was something hidden inside that mansion, something ancient, something powerful. And the next morning, only her diary was found in the grass, soaked by the storm, pages torn, words smeared with mud. The rest of her was gone. Farid touched the wooden gate, and it wailed under his hand as if waking from sleep. The hinges pulled back by themselves. The lantern flame shot upward, almost burning his fingers. The sudden wind brushed his hair, yet the air around him felt still, like breath held in a throat. He stepped inside, the courtyard stones crunching beneath his boots, his pulse louder than the growling thunder that echoed in the valley behind him. The courtyard was littered with broken statues shaped like faceless people, their hands reaching upward in silent screams, some missing arms, some sliced down the middle as if by claws rather than blades. Weeds choked the ground, covering old initials carved into stone. Farid felt the sensation that someone was standing beside him, breathing on his shoulder, watching, but when he turned, the space was empty. Only the shadows lay there, stretching unnaturally long despite the weak moonlight. He moved toward the main door, each step heavier than the last. Inside, the lantern light dust spiraled upward like dancing insects, in the air smelled faintly of burnt hair. The door of the mansion was already open, waiting. Inside, Farid heard the sound of distant thumping, like footsteps from somewhere deep in the halls, though he knew no one lived here anymore. He crossed the threshold, and the darkness swallowed him fully. The lantern became the only living thing in the room. Around him, tall walls reached upward further than seemed architecturally possible. Rows of paintings hung crooked, each frame coated in dust, yet the faces looked clearer than they should. Sad, twisted smiles, eyes staring directly at him. One painting showed a woman with hair covering her face. One showed 3 children with their fingers on their lips. Another portrayed a black tree stretching across a red sky, but the most disturbing was a portrait in the center showing a man with no eyes, wearing a suit, the skin on his cheeks stretched and stitched, the mouth curved too wide. Farid felt the urge to leave, but then he whispered Sana's name. His voice trembled, and a sound answered from the hallway upstairs. It was not quite a whisper, not quite a breath, more like a slow dragging of air around syllables, his name echoing from the darkness. Farid, come upstairs. His heart hammered. He raised the lantern, and the stairs came into view. Old wood splintered open, missing steps. The floor creaked under every movement. He began climbing, hearing the groans of the structure like voices working through the beams. Each step felt like crossing a rope above. A void, the lantern beam danced across peeling wallpaper, revealing shapes drawn in charcoal, faces, hands, screaming mouths, and bodies twisted in impossible forms. Then he saw something that made him freeze. A fresh footprint on the dusty stairs, small, delicate, clearly belonging to a woman. Sana? Farid dropped to his knees, touched the footprint, trembling, and it was warm. That warmth shot through his fingertips, up his arm, filling him with dread. The realization hit him like a blow. She had been here alive recently, or something that walked like her had been here alive recently. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched in both directions, both sides equally dark, yet the right side breathed cold wind that carried the faint scent of roses, Sana's favorite. Farid followed the scent, every step echoing too loud. The hallway walls had holes where rats once nested, yet no movement came from them. All silence suffocated the air. He reached a door with chipped paint, shaped like peeling skin. Letters were scratched across it, saying, "Do not follow her," but The door swung open before he could even touch it. Inside was a bedroom, moonlight leaking through a shattered window, the sheets torn, the wardrobe doors. Removed inside the bed, a figure sat its back facing him, hair falling long down its spine, shoulders trembling, as if sobbing. Farid's blood froze because he knew that shape. He had tucked Sana's hair like that countless times before when she cried as a child. He whispered Sana, and the figure stopped moving, her head tilted just slightly. But too slow, unnaturally slow. Then she began to stand, joints cracking like dry sticks. She turned around, and the lantern shook so violently, Farid almost dropped it. Because the face was both hers and not hers, the eyes too large, pupils spreading to the edges like darkness, swallowing the whites, her mouth sewn shut, threads biting into skin, bruised, swollen. Her breath wheezed through her nose, and she raised a shaking hand toward him. Farid stumbled backward, shouting her name, tears filling his eyes. He wanted to run. "Hold her!" screamed Tear, "the threads!" Open, but she shook her head violently, hair whipping air, and a low rumble escaped. Her throat, she pointed to the door on the left side of the bedroom. It slowly slid open, revealing only more darkness, but something inside moved, something breathing. Farid stared at Sana, trying to speak, trying to understand. She reached for his wrist, her fingers cold as frost, and underneath her fingernails were bits of skin that did not look like hers. She pushed him hard toward the open door, and he fell through it, landing in another hallway. But when he looked back, the bedroom was gone. The walls changed shape, and the entire layout of the mansion shifted around him. He stood now in a hallway with no windows, the walls tight around him, revealing scratches, thousands of scratches carved by fingernails, names repeated down the corridor, every name matching, people known to have disappeared. In the valley over decades, he touched one name, Hamza, another Safia, another Iqbal. Then he saw Sana again, written hundreds of times, layered over each other, as if she had carved herself into the walls in every moment of despair. Her name looked fresh, bleeding. A low dragging sound came from behind. Farid turned slowly, and a long shadow stretched across the floor, reaching him. Before the creature did, the shadow began rising, forming the outline of a tall man with elongated arms, fingers scraping the wooden board. Sparks flying, the lantern flickered, and the creature appeared, its face exactly like the portrait downstairs, eyeless, skin stretched, pulled, stitched, its mouth open wider and wider, revealing rows of teeth that could not fit in. Human bone structure, yet they were there. It rushed at him without footsteps, gliding like smoke. Farid swung the lantern, and the flame burst bright, striking the creature's arm. Its skin sizzled, releasing a stench that made him gag. The eyeless face screeched, and Farid ran through the hallway, turning left into another room. The door slammed behind him. Inside this room, the walls pulsed like breathing organs, the wooden floor bent with each inhalation, the ceiling dripping with black liquid that hissed when it fell onto the ground. He tried to calm himself, whispering, "Sana, Sana, I am here, I will find you." But his voice cracked, and the mansion seemed to laugh softly, leaning closer to hear him suffering more. Suddenly, a single candle lit inside the room, casting pale orange light, revealing hundreds of pages scattered across the floor. Diary pages, handwriting messy, terrified, ink smeared, yet words visible. Farid knelt, reading Sana's words she had written. She heard voices, she saw shadows, she felt hands on her neck. She could not sleep, she could not breathe. The house spoke to her, told her secrets, promised answers, whispering that humanity began here, that souls came from this soil, that death was not the end. She wrote that the mansion was alive, that the house hungered, that it did not kill bodies first. Instead, it devoured memories, and then identities, until what remained was only a shell. She wrote her last paragraph, trembling, ink-streaked. There is a room below the mansion, a room built before the rest, a room without doors, without light, without God. If you reach it, do not look at the walls, do not speak, do not breathe, and do not turn around. Farid's skin crawled, his heart beating too loud. He looked at the next page, words written in blood. "If you read this, then the house wants you too." The candle blew out. The floor beneath him cracked. A whisper rose from the darkness, the same voice calling his name. Farid, Farid, come down." The wood split open, and he fell into a void, screaming into total blackness. The fall felt endless air rushing past, but then he struck cold soil, lying on his back, unable to breathe above him. The hole closed, sealing him into darkness and silence. Yet he was not alone. Something was breathing inches from his face. He raised the lantern and saw it, flickering violently, revealing old stone walls, covered in symbols carved deep lines, twisting spirals, eyes and teeth shapes that made his head hurt to look at. Then fingers brushed his cheek from the darkness. The lantern flame turned blue, and a voice whispered right into his ear. "We have been waiting for you, Farid." Farid screamed,